Hey, good afternoon. This is Clay with Clay's AC and Auto Repair, Clay Motion here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. If this video is helpful, subscribe, click the notification box, send me your nice comments. If you want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me on Facebook under Clay's AC and Auto Repair. I'll get your messages much quicker there. Remember, you can't break it, so why not try to fix it? And you can't break what's already broken. So obviously today we're working on a Ford Escape that's got rusted inner fender liners in it, and I made the video originally of us putting in the metal ones, the metal inner fender liners, which you can buy from Dorman for about 175 bucks, approximately. And this time, because we got both sides left and right that we got to do, and it's a little bit more difficult to get a hold of the driver's side than it is to get a hold of the passenger side, we're going to do a bracketing system. I'm going to show you how to make the brackets if you're going to make your own. You can also buy them on the internet for about $215, what I've seen on eBay. We're going to show you that, give you the measurements for that. We're going to show you how to cut it out. We're going to show you how to form it up and make a fiberglass panel out of it. And with this particular design, we're actually going to do away with the shock mount right there. Like I said, we're going to make a metal bracket for that. It's going to be a lot of good information, so I highly recommend you watch the whole video. Okay, so the first thing that we did was we obviously removed the back. This is pretty simple, pretty straightforward, removing the plastic panels. They come off with pushies. You can watch other videos on how to remove that, or you can watch my other video and I'll explain it to you there. I'm going to try to make the video as quick as possible. I don't want it to run on forever because I tend to run my mouth. But so get the back out of here, take the plastic panels off, get down. You're going to need quite a few tools to be able to do this successfully at home. Quite a few people across the country bring me their vehicles because I do these very affordably, and two, because I do a really good job at these. In this situation, we're going to end up cutting out the rusted portions opposed to the other way that you do it, having to remove all the filler plastic here, like these rubbery stuff, and that's really time intensive. Putting in the metal patch panels is very, very time intensive and labor intensive. It's not that this way is better or worse than the original way. If you put in a patch panel and you're going to cut it out, generally this is pretty much what we cut out and we drill them out. In this situation, we're not going to cut all of this out this time because it's not rusted back here. We're going to end up cutting off the rust right here and filling this in with fiberglass, and we're going to bracket it up this way with an L, but this is on a skew, and I'll give you that and show you the dimensions for that as well. Okay, so once you're cut this out, if you're working on this driver's side, you want to be real careful when you're cutting that out, not cut into your filler neck tube right there. And it doesn't really matter where your rust is, you just want to make sure that you cut most of it out. Obviously you can still see a little bit up in here, but we're going to sand that down. That's just surface rust. We're going to sand that down. Once you got it out, we try to leave as much of this lip intact as possible. And on this particular side, in order to get your bracket to fit flush, and I'm going to show you how to make this bracket here in a second. If you've got a welder, you didn't buy yours, there's going to be a back side right here, and you're going to have to take out the pinch welds. You can see how there's a couple layers of, a couple layers of steel right there, and you want to make sure you take out that steel. You can just drill out the spot welds and then remove that portion, and then that's going to allow your bracket to fit in there nice. Obviously, we're going to box in this framework, and I'll take you over here and show you how to make this bracket. Okay, so to make this bracket, pretty simple. We went down to our local hardware store, and it's, got a couple pieces of steel. Obviously, this one is 16th inch, and that's what we used for the gusset right there. And then this is an 1/8 inch steel. We wanted this to be real strong. So what you're going to do to make the L bracket here is, sorry about my chicken scratchings. You want it to be 7 inches long, and then you want the top to be, hang on. This bracket has a lip of approximately 2 3/4 from here to here. And then we offset the hole from the gusset. The gusset would face forward, so this would be our left side bracket in our case, and it does sit on a slight skew of about 20 degrees or so. It's just got to be able to clear that, and the reason that this hole is offset from here is because we want the shock to fit up in there, and you're going to have the bushing and everything fitting up in there. You're going to make two brackets like this one, and that gusset's just going to make it stronger. This is a pretty strong bracket. I did some measurements on the inside of the car, and I'm going to go over there and show you that here in a second. So we had 4 inches from the top, so this is going to stick up about 4 inches from the floor when we put it in there, and I'll show you that here in a couple minutes. And when I took my measurement, I'm going to show you that we took a measurement from the bolt, which was 13.5 inches, and then it went, looks like, I don't know what the hell I wrote there. I don't know what the stinking heck I wrote there, but I measured from this stud here because it's the same on both sides. Okay, and then I measured back into the floor, which actually was doing the measurements over here, and I measured there, and then I knew that this distance from here to my shock tower, what that was, and that's how I came up with the measurements. But if you have the measurements of the bracket, so you're going to go 2 3/4 right here, and you're going to pretty much center your hole in the middle of that bracket there like we did on ours. And then you have this 7 inches long. That'll make that fit up on the frame rail real good. Now you can't, I can't stress enough, if you have a bunch of rust up in here, you can't use these brackets. You have to buy the filler panels and put it in there. But you can see how we have that marked off on a skew a little bit. And then we're going to drill the holes this way to give it a little, instead of just drilling them straight through side by side, this will actually give it a little bit more structural integrity doing it that way. You don't have to do it that way. You might have more rust to remove, you might have less, but you could essentially fill this panel in with exactly what we're talking about, and you can get them brackets on eBay for like $215. It's ridiculous, but anyways. So I'm gonna let you know, right on the other side of this box is the brake line, and it runs right through here. That's another reason that we put these holes staggered. So make sure that you're mindful of that. It goes up and it comes around.
The bottom one is very close to the brake line.
Yeah, and on ours, the bottom one is actually really close to the brake line, but we didn't go through it, so we should still be able to put a nut on there. No issues there. Now you go up to your local Gremlin store and pick up some bolts. They're going to be 3/8, 3.5 inches long, maybe 4 inches long. We're going to look here in a second. Okay, so a little bit more on the bracket and the bolting. All right, so the bracket is 3 inches wide, 7 inches long, like I said before, with a 2 3/4 inch cap. So this cap is 2 3/4. Now if you take the bracket and you set it like this, and you want to know the distance from here to here is 2 7/8 from the center of that hole, leading off 1 inch 1/8 to the center of this hole. I'm going to remeasure that real quick just to make sure I'm right. I'm actually mistaken. That was 1 1/4 from this edge to that edge if you're on this gusset, and obviously for the other side you're just going to flip it around and do the exact opposite. Okay, I probably went a little bit overkill on the bolts, but the bolts are 3.5 inches long, 3/8 bolts. All right, I'm using locking nuts. You don't have to use locking nuts, but they sure do help. Now you can also use a lock washer with a standard nut. I got the lock washers too. We're going to put washers on each side of it just to make sure it doesn't pull through or move. So we've got 8 regular washers, 4 locking washers, and 4 locking nuts that we're going to put on this. We might not end up using the locking nuts on our application, but we wouldn't show you that anyways. But you could get away with the 4-inch bolt in this situation, but these are 3.5 just because in my brain that's what I was going to do. but 3.5 only sticks out just a little bit. So, you know, 4 inches would work too. That's what she said. Sorry, I'm going to be flip-flopping a little bit, but I wanted to show you guys that we're up in, we're compressed a little bit, and the shock fits in there really well. And we've got a lot of clearance between our control arm here, which is normal for the factory. I'm gonna let it out and show you why I showed you this. Now, the reason I showed you that was because if it's at full extension, it will not fit. But when you compress the shock a little bit, it seems to fit. I know. Okay, so you're gonna take a 9/16 wrench and a 9/16 socket and tighten these up. I'd say like 60 to 80 foot-pounds, probably enough. You don't want to squish the box, you know, terribly bad, and you want to make sure that you have the same washers on the back side. I put lock washers on the front, and then the locking nuts on the back, along with regular flat washers. So that's it installed in there. Sitting pretty sweet. Pretty excited about that. Okay, so now we got our shock towers in place, and we've got this aluminum that I bought. So I got this at my local Ace Gremlin store as well. It's it's called Gimmons?
Gimmons.
Oh, well, I like to say Gremlins. I can't read. I'm illiterate. But anyways, bright aluminum, insect screening. Seemed to do the trick. We think we got it pretty nice. And it's hard to tell, but we tore off some strands from our leftovers that we cut a set of section, and then I started tearing the little weaves off right there. And then I weaved it down to hold it on there. What we're thinking we're going to do is we're going to do light fiberglass right here, and then we'll able to just drill up through our hole. I know we have 2 holes because Jeff messed up the first time, drilled a hole in the wrong spot. Then we just took the tape and we basically taped it down to make somewhat of a, oh, I cut my hand, it hurts. Anyways, to make a fixture like we had originally, so it has a nice contour to it, and we're able to stick our Bose speaker back in here, factory Bose speaker, and we'll tape that down a little bit more, and then we'll start putting on our fiberglass mat, which is going to be nasty, and we'll start resining it. Then we'll sand it tomorrow, paint it. She'll be sweet. So now we're going to take our fiberglass matting. We cut that into a section that's big enough to cover our area up, and we're going to mix our resin, but we're going to do both of our sides first. We're going to cut the areas that we need of fiberglass mat, and then we're going to mix up our resin, and we're going to use some trash bags here, and we're going to put our fiberglass mat on. We're going to put some resin on our screen mesh. We don't want it to drip through too much, so we're not going to soak it, but we're going to get it nice and dense. The rule is you're going to have to read the instructions, and you're going to need a scale to weigh it out, because if you make precise measurements on your hardener and your resin, your work will turn out real nice. It'll be sandable and everything. You primarily want this to disappear when you put it down on there. That's what we want, so we want to coat it enough to where it disappears. Trying to keep in mind that we'll try to keep as much fiberglass resin off of this top, but we can always drill through this, so we're not too super concerned. We'll drill it and we'll sand it down on the top of here if we have to. But as you can see, we got her set up pretty well, and gonna make sure you wear gloves when you do this in a long sleeve shirt, even though I don't have one today. And we'll go right over that tape. It won't even be a problem. Okay, so Jeff says he honestly wouldn't video this because it's our first attempt at ever doing one of these, but we think it came out pretty well. You've seen how we had the screen mesh. We decided after the first one, instead of using what they call is the, I don't think it's cloth or something like that, we were using the matting. I went to the store and bought some more down at the Gremlins hardware store. Just don't go there after midnight. But anyways, or give them, I think it's water, put water on them.
No, you can't feed them after midnight.
Yeah, you can't feed them after midnight or something like that. And then just in case they never feed them after midnight, keep mug wise and all that stuff. But okay, so what we got is we're putting down strips and we're letting that saturate through. Now you see some air pockets in there, and Jeff's gonna tap them out of there. So what we found was it was easier to stroke like Jeff is doing, stroke it in, stroke, 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 stroke it in, Jeff. Yep, keep doing what you normally do. And then after he gets that in there and he gets it really well saturated to where that almost disappears, he'll start tapping it like that, and he'll get them air bubbles out and pushed up against the metal. Now the tape kind of gets in our way a little bit. We've had to pull a couple pieces out once we got it down, but I know it don't look super pretty right here, but I think it looks excellent. It actually came out really well, and as long as our wheel doesn't rub up against our wheel arch, we're perfectly fine. It's obviously a joke. Pretty sure that's not going to happen. Not positive, but pretty sure. So now we're going to mix up some of the resin, and just so you know, I can't really show you this, but every ounce takes 15 drops. We've been mixing up 5 ounces of resin at a time, and we used about 10 ounces, maybe 10 to 13 ounces on the one side, but we really got a lot of layers of mat. Now what's going to happen is, when Jeff gets that first on, this actually has like 2 or 3 layers, and we just kind of kept going over it and filling it in because we used the cloth first, and we should have used the mat. And it just made it a lot easier because this crap gets everywhere, and that stuff's not so bad.
Resin, dude.
I'm gonna make him up more resin. So okay, so now when you're going to reinstall your shock, you're gonna put your jack right up underneath the knuckle, not underneath the shock support there, and that way you'll be able to put your shock in. Sorry, it's a little bit dark, but I think you can handle this. Okay, so we've got our nut and our washer on there, and you put the flattest spot, the biggest flattest spot down, and you put the washer on first. And notice we haven't cut the strap yet. Put our bolt in there. Gonna allow us to cut the thing and just cut the strap, and it'll just go up inside the hole.